Zelera never believed in myths. She was a scientist, a Centauri researcher who trusted logic, data, and facts. Myths were for dreamers, for those who refused to see the world as it truly was. And the greatest myth of all was the bond indicator, a relic from the ancient past, said to glow when two beings were biologically or psychically compatible. It had been inactive for centuries. The Centauri were a proud and intelligent species, known for their advanced technology and superior minds. According to history, they had evolved far beyond the need for biological connections with other species. That was why the indicator had stopped working long ago. It was proof that no other species in the galaxy was their equal. Or so she thought. Zelera was deep in thought, standing inside the Grand Hall of the Galactic Assembly, a place where different species met to discuss trade, politics, and alliances. She had little interest in diplomacy, but her presence was required. Today, a new trade agreement was being signed with humans, a relatively young species in the galaxy. She had studied them before, curious creatures, adaptable and unpredictable. They were not as advanced as the Centauri, but they had a strange ability to survive against all odds. Some called it luck, others called it human resilience. Zelera didn't care. She was only here for observation. The hall was filled with murmurs as representatives from different species discussed the agreement. Zelera stood near the edge of the room, her long silver-blue robes flowing around her. Her deep violet eyes scanned the crowd, landing on the group of humans standing nearby. They looked so different from the Centauri, taller, rougher, their skin colors ranging from pale to dark. And then one of them turned toward her. He had sharp blue eyes and short brown hair. His uniform identified him as a human diplomat. As the conversations in the hall continued, he walked toward her, a polite smile on his face. "Hello," he greeted. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Ethan Voss, from the Turan Republic." Zelera hesitated. Humans were known for their informal nature, but direct conversation like this was uncommon among Centauri. Still, she had been trained in intergalactic etiquette. "I am Zelera," she responded calmly, scientific advisor to the Centauri delegation. Ethan nodded. "Ah, a scientist. I assume you're here to ensure this agreement benefits your people." "Something like that," Zelera replied, though she had little interest in trade. Ethan extended his hand toward her. Zelera hesitated again. Centauri rarely touched others outside their species, but humans had this strange custom. They called it a handshake. It was meant to show respect and trust. She considered ignoring it, but she knew it would be rude. Slowly, she reached out and placed her hand in his. And then, it happened. A sharp glow burst from the bond indicator, which rested on a nearby pedestal. The hall went silent. Every Centauri turned toward the ancient device, their expressions frozen in shock. The indicator's smooth metallic surface shimmered with bright golden light, something no living Centauri had ever seen before. Zelera's heart pounded. This was impossible. She pulled her hand away as if burned, her breath unsteady. The glow flickered, then slowly faded. The silence in the hall remained, tension thick in the air. Ethan looked confused. Did I do something wrong?" Zelera didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mind raced with 100 questions. The indicator had never responded to any species, not in hundreds of years, but the moment she touched a human, it activated. This wasn't possible. A Centauri elder, a high-ranking member of the delegation, stepped forward, his expression unreadable. His voice was calm, but there was a sharpness beneath it. "Zelera," he said, "come with us. Now." Zelera looked around. The other Centauri were watching her, some with disbelief, others with something close to fear. She turned back to Ethan, whose face showed nothing but confusion. He had no idea what had just happened or why it was so important. Zelera struggled to find words. Finally, she whispered, "I have to go." Without another word, she followed the elder out of the hall. But her mind refused to stay quiet. Why did the indicator activate? What did it mean? And most of all, Xilera walked through the long, silver corridors of the Centauri embassy, her mind in chaos. The bond indicator had activated. That was impossible, completely against everything science had taught her. The device had remained dormant for centuries, proving that no species in the galaxy was compatible with the Centauri. Yet, today, it had glowed. And it had happened the moment she touched a human. She clenched her fists, trying to calm herself. This was a mistake, a malfunction. There had to be a logical explanation. The indicator was ancient. Maybe it had picked up an unrelated energy surge. Maybe it was random interference. Yes, that had to be it. She entered the private meeting chamber, where the Centauri elders were already waiting. The room was silent, its curved walls lined with holographic displays of past Centauri achievements. Xilera felt their eyes on her as she stepped forward. The elder who had summoned her, High Scholar Zorvan, stood at the center. His dark robes signified his status, and his piercing silver eyes studied her with an intensity that made her uneasy. "Explain what happened," he said, his voice calm but firm. Xilera took a slow breath. The bond indicator activated, but it must be a malfunction. Perhaps the device is unstable after so many centuries. "No," Zorvan interrupted. His gaze remained locked onto her. "The bond indicator does not malfunction. It has remained inactive for over 1,000 years. And yet, today, in front of the entire Galactic Assembly, it responded." Xilera's throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, but she had seen it with her own eyes. The indicator had responded to her touch with a human. Another elder, a female named Virel, stepped forward. "Do you understand the implications of what has happened?" Xilera frowned. "Implications? I see only a flawed machine giving a false reading." Zorvan's expression darkened. "Do not be foolish, Xilera. If this were a malfunction, it would have happened before. But it never did." He paused. The indicator detected a bond, and it was with a human. A heavy silence filled the room. Xilera's mind raced. The Centauri High Council had long declared that their species was superior, their biology unique. No other species had ever been found to be compatible with them. The bond indicator was a symbol of that belief. If it had truly reacted to a human, then everything they believed was wrong. "This cannot be," Xilera said, shaking her head. "It is unthinkable." Zorvan stepped closer. "You are a scientist, Xilera. Are you afraid of the truth?" She met his gaze. "I seek truth, but I will not accept nonsense." Virel sighed. "Then prove it. You are a researcher. Run your tests. Find out why the indicator activated." Xilera hesitated. She wanted to walk away, to pretend none of this had happened, but she couldn't. If there was even the slightest chance that the indicator had truly responded, she needed to know why. Finally, she nodded. "I will run my tests, and I will prove that this is a mistake." Zorvan gave a small nod. "Very well. But be careful, Xilera. There are forces that do not wish for this truth to come to light." Xilera stiffened. "Forces? What do you mean?" Zorvan didn't answer. Instead, he simply turned away, leaving the room. Back in her private laboratory, Xilera worked tirelessly. She analyzed the energy signature of the bond indicator. She ran complex tests on the recorded event from the Galactic Assembly. But no matter what she tried, the answer remained the same. The indicator had responded to the human's touch. Not interference, not a random surge, a real connection. She refused to believe it. She needed more data. And that meant she needed to see the human again. The next day, Xilera made her way through the assembly corridors, searching for Ethan Voss. She found him standing near a large observation window, looking out at the stars. He turned as she approached. "Xilera," he said with a smile, "did you figure out what happened yesterday?" Xilera studied him. He was calm, completely unaware of the chaos he had caused in her world. Did he feel anything when the indicator activated? Did humans have some hidden trait that no one knew about? I need to run tests, she said abruptly. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Tests? Yes. I need to determine why the bond indicator reacted to your presence. Ethan chuckled. You say that like I know what that means. Silara hesitated. Telling him the full truth could be dangerous, but she needed his cooperation. She took a slow breath. The bond indicator is an ancient device. It only activates when a true connection is found between a Xentari and another being. Ethan tilted his head. A connection. Silara ignored his questioning look. I will need to scan your biology. I must prove that this was a mistake. Ethan crossed his arms. All right, but what if it wasn't a mistake? Silara frowned. It must be. Ethan smirked. That's not a very scientific answer. Silara ignored the strange feeling his words gave her. She would prove this was nothing but a malfunction. Because if she couldn't, then everything she had ever believed would be a lie. Silara sat in her laboratory, staring at the results of her tests. The holographic display glowed in front of her, filled with complex data. She had scanned Ethan Voss multiple times, analyzing his DNA, energy signature, and neural patterns. She had checked for any external interference or unknown technology. But no matter how hard she tried to find an error, the truth remained the same. The bond indicator had activated because of him. She rubbed her temples, frustration boiling inside her. This was impossible. Centauri history had always stated that their species was superior, biologically unique. No species had ever been compatible with them. And yet, a human, a species considered younger, weaker, had triggered the ancient device. Silara refused to believe it. A sharp knock on the lab door pulled her out of her thoughts. She turned to see High Scholar Zorvan entering. His eyes, always calm and wise, studied her with quiet intensity. You have completed your tests, he asked. Silara hesitated, then nodded. Yes. And? She swallowed. The results confirm what we saw at the assembly. The indicator responded to Ethan Voss. There is a real connection. Zorvan sighed, as if he had expected this. Then the time has come for you to learn the truth. Silara frowned. The truth. Zorvan walked past her and placed his hand on the control panel. A hidden compartment in the lab wall opened, revealing an ancient data core. The device was covered in intricate symbols, glowing faintly with an energy she had never seen before. What is that? She asked. Zorvan looked at her, something the High Council has kept hidden for generations. Silara felt a chill run down her spine. Why? Zorvan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he activated the data core. A holographic projection appeared, displaying ancient records, thousands of years old. Silara's eyes widened as she read the information. It was a history she had never seen before, a history that had been erased. The Xentari were not always alone. Thousands of years ago, they had once shared their existence with another branch of their species, a group that was sent away, exiled to the far reaches of space. Over time, those exiles lost their technology, their history, their identity. They became something else. They became humans. Silara's heart pounded. This can't be real. Zorvan's voice was heavy. It is, and the High Council has kept it a secret for centuries. Silara's mind raced. If humans were once part of the Xentari race, then it made sense why the bond indicator had responded to Ethan. It had recognized a connection buried deep in their biology. But why had this truth been hidden? She turned to Zorvan. Why did the High Council erase this? Zorvan's expression darkened. Because they feared it. Silara felt anger rising inside her. Fear. Fear of what? The truth would weaken their control, Zorvan continued. If the people knew that humans were once part of us, they would question everything. The idea of Centauri superiority would crumble. Silara clenched her fists. She had always believed in logic, in truth, and now she realized she had been living a lie. We need to reveal this, she said firmly. Zorvan shook his head. The High Council will not allow it. If you try, they will silence you. Silara's breath caught. Are you saying they would? Yes. Zorvan's voice was quiet but firm. They have done it before. A cold fear settled in Silara's chest. She had always believed the High Council was wise and just. But now she saw them for what they truly were, guardians of a lie. She looked back at the data core. The truth was right in front of her, and if she exposed it, she would become a target. But she couldn't stay silent. She took a deep breath and met Zorvan's gaze. What do I do? Zorvan hesitated. Then he said, you must leave. Go somewhere safe, and take the truth with you. Silara's heart pounded. If she left now, she would be branded a traitor. She would be hunted. But if she stayed, the truth would die with her. She had no choice. I need to find Ethan, she said. Zorvan nodded. Be quick. They will come for you soon. Silara turned and rushed out of the lab, her mind racing. She had lived her entire life believing one truth. Now she was running for another. Silara moved swiftly through the grand corridors of the Centauri embassy, her heart pounding like a war drum. Every step she took felt heavier, every breath tighter. She was no longer just a scientist. She was a fugitive now. The truth she had uncovered, the hidden connection between humans and the Centauri, was something the High Council would never allow to spread. And if they caught her before she escaped, she had no doubt what would happen. She pressed a small device on her wrist, activating a secure communication channel. Ethan, she whispered urgently. Where are you? There was a brief silence. Then his voice came through. Silara, I'm at the assembly hall. What's wrong? She glanced around. The hallways were still empty, but she didn't have much time. I need you to meet me at the East Docking Bay. Now, don't tell anyone. Wait, what? Silara, what's going on? No time to explain. Just come, please. A short pause. Then finally, Ethan sighed. All right, I'm on my way. Silara deactivated the communicator and took a deep breath. She needed to move fast. As she neared the docking bay, she saw two Centauri guards standing near the entrance. Their posture was stiff, their weapons glowing faintly. They were waiting for her. Silara's stomach twisted. She had hoped for more time, but the High Council had acted faster than she expected. She needed another way in. Carefully, she took a detour through a maintenance tunnel, her mind racing. Years of working in the embassy had given her knowledge of its layout. If she could just make it to the other side of the docking bay. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the tunnel speakers. Silara, surrender yourself immediately. She froze. The voice was calm but filled with authority. It belonged to High Scholar Varel. You have accessed restricted information. Return to the High Council chambers, and we will discuss this matter peacefully. Silara clenched her fists. Peacefully. She knew what that meant. They would erase her memories, erase her research, erase everything. The truth would be lost forever. Her choice was clear. She took off running. Alarms blared through the tunnel as she reached a service hatch and forced it open. Slipping through, she found herself inside the docking bay, hidden behind a stack of cargo containers. Her eyes darted around. No sign of Ethan yet. The docking bay was busy with activity, pilots, workers, and a few guards patrolling the area. Silara took a deep breath. She needed to stay hidden until Ethan arrived. She pressed against the cold metal of the containers, trying to keep her breath steady. Then a voice spoke from behind her. Well, this looks suspicious. Silara spun around, fists clenched, only to see Ethan standing there, arms crossed, an amused expression on his face. She exhaled in relief. Finally, we need to go. Ethan frowned. Go where? And why do you look like you just stole something from the High Council? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out a small data crystal and held it up. This contains proof that the Centauri and humans share an ancient connection. The High Council has been hiding it for centuries. Ethan's amusement vanished. He stared at her, processing the weight of her words. Wait, are you saying humans and Centauri air? Yes. Scifi looked around, but I don't have time to explain. The council wants to silence me. If we don't leave now, they'll find us. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He was quick to understand the danger. All right, he said. There's a small transport ship at Dock 3. We can take it. Scifi nodded. Let's move. They slipped through the shadows, avoiding the guards. Every second mattered. But just as they reached the transport ship, a loud voice rang through the docking bay. Halt! Scifi's blood ran cold. She and Ethan turned to see a squad of Centauri guards blocking their path. Their weapons were raised, energy crackling at the tips. Behind them stood High Scholar Varel. Her expression was calm, but her violet eyes held a dangerous edge. Scifi, Varel said smoothly. You disappoint me. Scifi gritted her teeth. You lied to all of us. We protected our people, Varel corrected. This knowledge would only create chaos. Ethan stepped forward. So you're just going to kill her for knowing the truth. Varel sighed. Not kill. Just erase. Scifi's stomach twisted. She knew what that meant. A mind wipe, a complete erasure of her memories. She would wake up as a different person, never remembering what she had learned. She refused to let that happen. Ethan tensed beside her. Well, he muttered, I was hoping we wouldn't have to fight our way out. Scifi glanced at him. You're a diplomat. Can you even fight? Ethan smirked. I was a soldier before that. Without another word, he moved fast. Faster than Scifi expected. In one swift motion, he grabbed a nearby metal crate and threw it at the guards. The heavy impact sent two of them stumbling back. Scifi didn't hesitate. She activated her wrist device, sending out an EMP pulse that temporarily disabled their weapons. Sparks flew as the energy rifles short-circuited. Now, Ethan shouted. They sprinted toward the transport ship. Scifi's heart pounded as the guards regained their balance and pursued them. Ethan reached the ship's control panel and overrode the security system. The ramp lowered, and they dashed inside. Strap in, Ethan called as he jumped into the pilot's seat. Scifi barely had time to secure herself before the ship roared to life. The docking bay's alarm blared louder as the ship's thrusters ignited. Open the launch doors, one of the guards shouted. Not happening, Ethan muttered. He pressed a few buttons, and the ship blasted forward. The force of acceleration pressed Scifi against her seat as they shot out into space, leaving the Centauri embassy behind. She let out a shaky breath. They had escaped. But this was only the beginning. Because now, she and Ethan were the most wanted fugitives in the galaxy, and the truth they carried could change everything. The small transport ship shot through the vast darkness of space, its engines roaring as it left the Centauri embassy far behind. Scifi sat in the co-pilot's seat, her heart still racing from their escape. She couldn't believe they had actually made it out. Ethan's hands moved quickly over the ship's controls, his eyes sharp and focused. He had handled the escape with the precision of an experienced pilot. Scifi took a deep breath. Did you really used to be a soldier? Ethan smirked slightly. Surprised. She shook her head. No, just glad. He glanced at her. Well, don't relax yet. We're not safe. Scifi turned to the ship's scanners. Her stomach clenched. 3 Centauri pursuit ships had already locked onto them. They're coming, she said. Ethan muttered under his breath. Of course they are. He flipped a switch, and the ship's thrusters flared. Hang on. The transport ship lurched forward, speeding through the void. Scifi gripped her seat as Ethan performed a sharp maneuver, dodging an incoming energy blast. The Centauri ships fired relentlessly. Blue energy beams streaked through the darkness, barely missing them. They won't stop until we're captured, Silara said. Ethan clenched his jaw. Then we'll have to lose them. He pushed the ship harder, weaving through a field of asteroids. The massive rocks tumbled through space, creating a dangerous but perfect cover. Are you crazy? Silara gasped as the ship barely avoided colliding with an asteroid. Ethan grinned. A little. The Centauri ships hesitated, trying to follow, but the asteroid field was too unpredictable. One of the pursuers miscalculated and crashed into a massive rock, exploding in a fiery burst. Got one, Ethan said. Silara focused on the scanners. 2 left. Another energy blast shook the ship, sending sparks flying across the control panel. Warning lights flashed red. We can't take many more hits, Silara warned. Ethan's eyes scanned the nav display. There's a small moon nearby. I can use its gravity to slingshot us away. Silara checked the coordinates. That's risky. Ethan grinned. That's flying. With a sharp turn, he guided the ship toward the moon. The Centauri ships followed closely, unwilling to let their targets escape. As they neared the moon's surface, Ethan activated manual thrusters. The sudden change in force sent the ship into a tight, fast orbit. The pursuing ships tried to adjust, but they weren't fast enough. Ethan pulled the ship into a steep dive, using the moon's gravity to increase their speed. Then, at the last second, he fired the main thrusters, breaking free from the orbit and shooting into open space. The 2 Centauri ships couldn't react in time. They were pulled into the moon's gravitational field. One crashed into the rocky surface, while the other spun out of control, unable to continue pursuit. Silara let out a shaky breath. You did it. Ethan leaned back in his seat, exhaling. Told you. Soldier first, diplomat second. She gave him a small smile. I'm starting to believe that. But relief was short-lived. The ship's fuel reserves were low, and they couldn't keep running forever. Silara checked the star maps. We need a place to land and refuel. Somewhere safe. Ethan studied the display. There's an independent station a few light years from here. No Centauri control. Silara nodded. Let's go. Ethan programmed the coordinates and activated the hyperdrive. The ship jumped into FTL, leaving the Centauri space behind. For now, they were free. But the real fight was just beginning. The transport ship dropped out of FTL near a distant space station, floating like a forgotten relic in the cold void. Its exterior was old and patched together with different metals, a sign that it had been repaired many times over the years. Silara scanned it from the co-pilot's seat. This station, it's not part of any major faction. Ethan nodded. That's why we're here. No Centauri authority, no diplomatic laws, just traders, smugglers, and people who don't ask questions. Silara frowned. That also makes it dangerous. Ethan smirked. We're already the most wanted fugitives in the galaxy. What's a little more danger? The ship's communication system crackled. A robotic voice came through. Unidentified vessel, state your purpose. Ethan responded, his tone casual. We're just travelers looking for fuel and supplies. No trouble. A long pause. Then the voice replied. Dock at Bay 7. Payment required up front. The transmission ended. Silara crossed her arms. They didn't even ask for our identification. Ethan shrugged. That's why this place is perfect. He guided the ship into Bay 7, where rusted docking clamps locked onto the hull. The station's airlocks hissed open, releasing a faint cloud of steam. Ethan stood up and stretched. All right. We refuel, get supplies, and stay low. We can't afford to draw attention. Silara nodded, adjusting the hood of her cloak. She knew that if any Centauri operatives were on this station, they would recognize her instantly. As they stepped out of the ship, the heavy scent of oil, smoke, and recycled air filled Silara's lungs. The station's marketplace was bustling with activity. Humans, aliens, and machines moving in every direction. Neon lights flickered above strange-looking shops, and loud voices shouted prices in different languages. Ethan led the way through the crowd, his eyes scanning for any signs of danger. They reached a fuel vendor, a short reptilian alien with glowing yellow eyes. "Payment first," the vendor hissed. Ethan pulled out a small credit chip and handed it over. "This should cover it." The vendor examined the chip, then nodded. "It will take an hour." Ethan exhaled. "Fine. We'll wait." Silara glanced around. Something felt off. The people here were used to criminals, outlaws, and fugitives, but a few individuals were watching them too closely. Ethan must have sensed it too, because he muttered, "We should find a place to lay low." They moved toward a dimly lit cantina tucked between two repair shops. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of burning fuel and alien spices. The walls were covered in old screens displaying wanted posters and bounties. Zilara froze. Her face was on one of the screens. "Ethan," she whispered. He followed her gaze. The screen flashed with a high-priority bounty issued by the Centauri High Council. The reward was massive. And that meant only one thing. Everyone on this station would want to capture them. Ethan grabbed her arm. "We need to go. Now." But before they could move, a large alien bounty hunter stepped in front of them. His armor was scratched from past battles, and his cybernetic eye glowed red. "You two look familiar," he said in a deep voice. Ethan forced a smile. "I think you're mistaken." The bounty hunter chuckled. "I don't think so. The Centauri are offering a fortune for you, scientist." His gaze shifted to Ethan. "And you're just an extra bonus." Silara's heart pounded. The cantina had gone silent. More eyes were on them now. Ethan muttered under his breath, "I really hoped we wouldn't have to fight today." The bounty hunter reached for his weapon. Silara moved first. She grabbed a metal tray from a nearby table and smashed it against the bounty hunter's face. The impact made a loud clang, but it barely slowed him down. Ethan acted fast, grabbing a bottle and throwing it at the lights above. The room went dark, and chaos erupted. Shouts filled the cantina as tables overturned and blasters fired. Silara and Ethan rushed toward the exit, dodging between the fighting patrons. The bounty hunter roared behind them, shoving people aside as he chased them through the market. Ethan pulled Silara toward an alleyway. "We need to lose him." Silara's mind raced. They couldn't run forever. She spotted an old maintenance panel on the wall. "This way," she said, pulling it open. They crawled inside just as the bounty hunter stormed past, cursing loudly. For several moments, they stayed silent, listening to the heavy footsteps fade. Ethan exhaled. That was close. Silara nodded, her pulse still racing. "They won't stop hunting us." Ethan looked at her, his expression serious. "Then we need to move faster. We need to reveal the truth before they catch us." Silara clenched her fists. The data crystal in her pocket contained everything. The proof that could change the balance of power between humans and the Centauri. But to expose the truth, they needed a way to broadcast it to the entire galaxy. And that meant one thing. They needed to reach the Galactic Communication Hub, the largest data network in the universe. Silara took a deep breath. "Then let's go." They had a new destination, and time was running out. The stolen transport ship sped toward the Galactic Communication Hub, a massive station floating in the center of known space. It was the heart of interstellar communication, connecting every faction, planet, and species across the galaxy. Silara sat beside Ethan, gripping the data crystal tightly. Everything depended on this moment. If they could upload the truth into the hub's central system, the entire galaxy would know about the Centauri Council's lies. Ethan glanced at the sensors. No Centauri ships in sight. Yet. Silara nodded, but her heart pounded. They will come. We don't have much time. The station's docking control hailed them. "Unknown vessel, state your purpose." Ethan pressed the comm button. "We're here for a private message upload. Urgent priority." A pause. Then the robotic voice replied, "Proceed to docking Bay 12." Ethan guided the ship forward, landing smoothly in the massive hangar. The moment the airlocks hissed open, they rushed out. The station was crowded with travelers, but they couldn't afford to waste time. Scifi led the way through the corridors, her mind focused on the main broadcast terminal, the central control room where all galactic transmissions were managed. If they could reach it, they could send the truth to everyone, everywhere, all at once. They reached an elevator that led to the top level. Ethan pressed the button. The doors slid open, and they stepped inside. As the doors closed, Solara's indicator on her wrist suddenly flashed red. Her blood turned cold. Ethan saw it too. "They're here." The elevator dinged, and the doors opened to reveal a squad of Centauri enforcers waiting for them. Their weapons were drawn. A tall Centauri officer stepped forward, his expression cold. "Give us the data crystal, Solara. It's over." Solara's mind raced. They couldn't win a direct fight. Ethan muttered, "We need a distraction." Solara reacted instantly. She grabbed Ethan's wrist, and as soon as their skin touched, her indicator pulsed bright blue. A sudden shockwave of energy erupted from her body, sending the enforcers staggering backward. Ethan gasped. What was that? Solara didn't know. She only knew they had one chance. "Run," she shouted. They sprinted past the stunned enforcers, rushing toward the broadcast terminal. Alarms blared across the station. The Centauri were closing in fast. Solara spotted the control panel up ahead. A large reinforced door blocked the entrance. Ethan didn't stop. He pulled out a hacking device and jammed it into the control system. The screen flickered, then turned green. The door slid open, and they ran inside. The main broadcast terminal was a massive circular room filled with glowing holographic displays. The galactic transmission array sat at the center, waiting for input. Solara didn't hesitate. She slammed the data crystal into the console and started the upload. Progress. 10%, 25%. Footsteps echoed outside. The enforcers were coming. Ethan drew his blaster. "I'll hold them off." Solara's heart clenched. "You can't fight them all." Ethan smiled. "I don't have to. I just need to buy time." The doors burst open, and Centauri enforcers poured in. Ethan opened fire, forcing them to take cover. Solara's eyes stayed on the screen. 60%, 75%. A shot grazed Ethan's arm, and he grunted in pain but didn't stop. 90%. The Centauri officer stepped forward, aiming his weapon directly at Solara. "This ends now." Solara didn't look away from the screen. 99%, 100%. She slammed the final button, and the truth was unleashed. Across the entire galaxy, every screen, every device, every news network lit up with the undeniable proof that Centauri High Council had lied about humanity. They had feared them. They had tried to control them. But now, everyone knew. The Centauri officer's face paled as he saw the broadcast. The other enforcers hesitated. Solara took a deep breath. It's over. The station's security alarms blared. More forces arrived, but this time they weren't just Centauri. Other factions had seen the truth, and they weren't going to let the Centauri get away with their crimes. Ethan grinned. "I think we just changed the galaxy." Solara smiled back. Together. As the station erupted into chaos, Ethan grabbed her hand. "Time to go." She nodded. They had won, but the fight for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning, and they would face it together.